Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the Noon News from Montana's news leader.
A very good Friday afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Noon News. I'm Samantha Sullivan. Well, today is one of the busiest travel days of the year ahead of the Memorial Day holiday. Across the country, tens of millions of Americans will celebrate the Memorial Day weekend away from home. According to AAA, the vast majority of travelers, more than 37 million people, will take to the roads this weekend, driving at least 50 miles away from home. Air travel will be busy as well, so many airports across the country are telling folks to pack their patience. As a whole, we're told Memorial Day is up. Travel is up about 6% from last year. And now we'll turn things over to Ed in the Weather Center. Ed, how are things shaping up for folks who are traveling or just celebrating the Memorial Day holiday?
You know, and it might be less about the amount of traffic on the roads and more about the weather as we get into the weekend. We're still looking at a decent chance of showers through the rest of the day today. It tapers off in the east. It starts to pick up towards the west. Tomorrow, drier and warmer weather in eastern Montana, but the rain and thunderstorms pick up towards the west. And by Sunday into Monday, even some stronger thunderstorms are possible in portions of the region. Here's a look at our computer analysis showing that chance of rain moving across the region. The central portion of the state a little bit drier today, but as we take it through Saturday, the chance of rain increases in the west. By the end of the day on Sunday, almost everywhere in the state, at least some chance of rain. We'll take a look at the forecast coming up.
All right, thanks, Ed. Well, ahead of Memorial Day, a World War II soldier finally makes it back to Montana. MTN's Cody Boyer has the story of Private William Bogley and his long journey home.
Private William Bogley was killed in action 1944 while protecting those who were running out to save the wounded. All these decades later, his family got to see him come home.
He was from Sedan, Montana, farm boy, Montana boy that became a hero.
Private William Bogley's story started and ended near the Philippines, a soldier in the U.S. Army. His nephew, Don McHenry, says it was September 30th, 1944.
They wanted to capture this island to make a jumping off point to invade the Philippines.
Except trouble.
Well, after 380 some people were killed, they decided it wasn't worth it.
All the while, men carrying stretchers to help the wounded ran into the fray. Private Bogley, Don's Uncle Bill, volunteered to guard them, an act that Don retold to a room full of military, friends, and family.
Montana has that mindset. They're willing to do whatever it takes.
But then, for all intents and purposes, he disappeared.
He was killed on September 30th, 1944, and they buried him at that time there. Then they dug him up in 1947 and tried to identify remains. I think his number was XP 3008.
In 1995, after being transported and buried at Fort McKinley, then placed in a mausoleum, the soldier's remains made it to Hawaii. After DNA testing, William's name became clear.
April of last year, I get a call from a lady that was a contractor for the U.S. Army. We're telling me that they're trying to identify remains of missing MIAs. She said, would you be willing to talk to one of the Army guys, regular Army guys? And we said, yeah, I certainly would.
And almost exactly 74 years after his death, Don got another call. Uncle Bill was coming home. And today, by plane, Private Bogley made the trip that he should have made 7 decades ago.
Pretty special, and it's too bad that my mother and her brothers didn't get to know that. They didn't know what happened to him. He could have been buried in Arlington with the caissons and the whole 9 yards, but we chose to have him buried here.
Why?
This is where he was born and raised.
Farm boy, uncle, soldier, hero. A fitting set of titles for a man whose return was long overdue.
Just never leave up hope and honor the veterans, because they gave up a lot for us.
In Bozeman, Cody Boyer, MTN News.
Thanks so much for that story, Cody. Well, in other news this afternoon, tribal leaders joined Governor Steve Bullock to celebrate new law to address missing and murdered Indigenous women. Bullock signed the legislative package, which includes Hannah's Act, along with a bill to survey reservation economic impact and a bill to create a tribal monument at the Capitol. Leaders say the passage of these bills will have a big impact on addressing Native issues.
It's not just for us, it's all Montanans, but whatever, Montana has to start looking like Montana. We have to start including the Native peoples. We've been here a long time.
Now also this year, a record number of Native Americans were elected to the legislature. Well, we are getting an inside look at the newly renovated and more spacious Eastern Montana Crime Lab. As MTN's Andrea Lutz reports, this lab will serve 32 counties and was needed for quite some time.
It took 6 months to renovate what most people remember as the Wild West Bar. But now it's the Eastern Montana Crime Lab. And inside these walls, things are much different.
Everything about this building suits the needs that we have.
The lab is divided into 2 parts, the morgue and chemistry analysis. Each now has more space than before.
The space at the old facility was just inadequate.
It's the convenience factor because Billings, being one of the larger cities, we needed this facility.
The Montana Attorney General Tim Fox helped publicly usher in the new lab by thanking leaders in Yellowstone County. He says this facility will help Montana continue to have a cutting-edge forensic sciences division.
With 2 pathologists now in Billings, we have an adequate workforce for the amount of cases that we have.
With 1,500 chemistry cases anticipated for 2019, over 300 autopsies set to happen this year too. The need for a crime lab in Billings is huge. Drug-related and violent crimes continue to occupy law enforcement time.
There is a high drug problem here. I mean, it's sad in a way, but just having this facility here, it helps the turnaround time.
And because time is precious in an investigation, travel to Missoula is now cut down.
And there's even the opportunity to expand this building in the future. In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Thanks, Andrea. Well, the Columbia Falls School District will ask voters to approve a bond to rebuild Glacier Gateway School and remodel for Rudder Elementary. The remodels will cost $34 million. Officials say both schools desperately need new roofs, space, and classrooms. The superintendent says safety is the school's biggest concern.
Section off different parts of our building that once you get into the building, if we hit a button, we'd have doors that could come down and secure the other parts of the building. So it's you hate to think about something like that, but boy, you don't want to do a remodel or build a new building without that thought in mind.
Now, a bond will go before voters this September. If the bond does pass, Glacier Gateway will rebuild in a new location. State regulators are close to wrapping up a 2-week hearing on Northwestern Energy's electric rate case before the Public Service Commission. Over the past 2 days, however, the focus wasn't on general rates, but rather on how Northwestern wants to treat rooftop solar customers. Right now, solar customers use the excess power they generate at the same price as other customers. Northwestern is proposing a new demand charge for solar customers based on peak consumption. The proposal was criticized by solar advocates, saying this would make solar too expensive to build.
I couldn't think of a better way to kill this industry. In fact, that's almost what it seems like it's designed to do. If you approve this, you will decimate numerous small industries.
The PSC will make its final decision in the coming weeks. Well, coming up here on the Noon News, British Prime Minister Theresa May announcing her resignation today. We'll have those details when we come back. But first, Ed joins us with a look at the statewide weekend forecast. We're back in just a minute.
You're watching MTN News with Samantha Sullivan, Storm Tracker Weather with Ed McIntosh, and Farm and Ranch News from the Montana Ag Network. This is the Noon News on Q2, Montana's news leader.